How to build quantum communities. Dr Amara Graps, an award-winning Latvian-American physicist with decades of experience in building scientific communities, offers a refreshing blueprint on how quantum communities can thrive. Not through jargon and exclusivity, but through storytelling, inclusiveness, and a bit of fun. Amara Graps has a background in astronomy and planetary science and quantum technologies, with companies including Baltic Sandbox Ventures, the Planetary Science Institute, Deep Space Industries, Inc., Logistics and Global Quantum Intelligence, LLC. A prolific researcher with experience in investment due diligence and governmental research, Amara's academic career has spanned leading academic organisations including the National Institute of Astrophysics, Rome, Max Planck Institute for Nuclear Physics, NASA Ames Research Centre, and the University of Latvia, Latvijas Universitāte. Amara has authored various publications and reports for international clients, including the European Commission, the European Space Agency, ESA, and the European Investment Council. We were delighted to host Amara at Quantum Security Defence in May. These events are getting quite busy these days, but true to form, Amara has been there since the very start, one of our best supporters and most insightful and experienced community members. There is literally nothing that Amara doesn't know about building quantum communities. She is one of the world's experts, and we are delighted she decided to share her insights with us. Chapter 1. Introduction. Why Quantum Needs Community. Here's something that might surprise you. The future of quantum technology won't be decided by qubits or superconductors. It will be decided by people. That's the central insight guiding the work of Dr Amara Graps, a Latvian-American physicist with a 40-year track record in astrophysics, space research, and scientific community building. Today, she's become one of the most insightful voices on how quantum technologies can succeed, not through technological dominance, but through the power of human connection. Amara didn't start in quantum. Her career began with the stars, literally. Working with NASA, the Max Planck Institute, the European Space Agency, and the University of Latvia, she carved a respected niche in space science. But when she moved to Latvia more than a decade ago, she encountered a reality shared by many researchers in small or emerging markets. Grant funding ruled everything. Maintaining multiple academic affiliations across the EU and US helped her stay afloat, but it also meant writing 3 times the proposals for 3 times the institutions, with maybe a 15% chance of success. It was a relentless treadmill, and eventually it took its toll. That's when she saw an opportunity. Quantum technology was growing, twice as fast as the space sector. More than that, it was wide open. There was a desperate need not just for better hardware or algorithms, but for bridges between disciplines, sectors, and people. Amara shifted her focus, not out of disillusionment, but out of determination. She saw that everything she had learned from decades in deep tech, governance, and research policy could help this fledgling field grow stronger. She didn't just want to study quantum, she wanted to help shape the way people build around it. She began writing, translating complex quantum concepts for broader audiences, publishing insights for clients like the European Commission and the European Space Agency, and advising startups and governments on how to develop robust, human-centred quantum strategies. Through it all, one truth became clear. Quantum needs more than breakthroughs. It needs belonging. Despite the excitement surrounding quantum, the numbers tell a quieter story. Globally, there are just over 1,000 quantum companies. Half of them have fewer than 50 employees. These are not vast corporations with billion-dollar budgets. They are small teams, agile, ambitious, and resource-constrained. With size comes limitation. Limited staff means limited reach. Smaller companies often struggle to build visibility, attract clients, or recruit the specialized talent they need. What they lack in resources, they must make up for in community. This audiobook distills Amara Graps' most powerful insights from 3 years immersed in the quantum world, layered over decades of community building in the space sector. It's a roadmap not for building technology, but for building movements. She'll outline the difference between ecosystems and communities and why quantum needs both. She'll explain why companies should upskill from within rather than hunting endlessly for quantum unicorns. She'll introduce a triple audience model for engagement, showcase the power of storytelling, and spotlight the often overlooked strategic value of diversity in leadership. What makes her perspective unique is that it's grounded in real-world pragmatism. She doesn't speak from theory, she speaks from experience, from grant applications, investor meetings, policy workshops, and working shoulder to shoulder with researchers and innovators who are trying to make quantum work right now. And at the heart of it all is a simple, actionable message. Communities turn potential into progress. Quantum will be one of the most transformative technologies of this century. But it won't fulfill that promise without the people, the principles, and the platforms to carry it forward. This is the story of how to build that foundation, person by person, story by story, conversation by conversation. And it starts here. Chapter 2. The Human Hardware. People before protocols. If quantum technology is the engine of the future, people are the fuel. And no one understands this better than Dr. Amara Graps. Throughout her career, Amara has seen how even the most groundbreaking technologies can flounder when they're isolated from the communities they're meant to serve. She often reminds audiences a powerful tool in the hands of a disconnected team is just that, a tool. But placed within a thriving community, it becomes a catalyst. In quantum, this distinction is critical. Despite the headlines and funding buzz, quantum companies remain small. In fact, more than half have fewer than 50 employees. These are lean-focused teams. They're brilliant, yes, but they're also stretched thin, with limited marketing reach, reduced hiring capacity, and often minimal user engagement infrastructure. Amara argues that this isn't a problem, it's an opportunity, because smaller teams can move faster, pivot quicker, and build stronger bonds if they understand the value of community. For her, the word community isn't a fluffy afterthought or marketing strategy, it's infrastructure. It's what helps small teams scale their impact without scaling their overhead. A vibrant community can extend a company's visibility, enhance trust, attract early users, and even recruit future employees. But that only happens when companies prioritize the human layer of their technology. It starts with simple things: clear documentation, transparent communication, and regular engagement with stakeholders, not just customers, but peers, students, policymakers, and even critics. It also means thinking beyond the next round of funding. Amara often advises quantum startups to plan for longevity by embedding themselves in broader ecosystems. That might mean partnering with universities, contributing to open source libraries, or hosting informal gatherings to share progress and invite feedback. These aren't distractions, they're community accelerators. She tells a story of a quantum startup she advised that nearly burned out trying to manage outreach, recruitment, and investor pressure all at once. The turning point came not from another engineer, but from hiring a community manager. Someone who understood that people need to feel connected before they'll commit. That one hire changed everything. Newsletter open rates doubled. Meetups turned into hiring funnels. Public demos started attracting curious minds from unrelated industries, each one bringing fresh perspective and occasionally unexpected solutions. Amara calls this the people before protocols principle. It's about remembering that even in a field as mathematically dense and physically abstract as quantum, progress begins and ends with people. Investors often ask about patents and performance benchmarks, but Amara suggests they should also ask, who are you talking to? Who knows about you? Who would miss you if you disappeared? The answers to those questions often predict long-term success more reliably than any technical spec sheet. Quantum is, at its core, a communal pursuit. Its biggest wins, whether in cryptography, simulation, or optimization, won't come from one lab or one company. They'll come from coordinated effort, from knowledge shared across time zones and disciplines. That's why building a community isn't just smart, it's essential. And it starts with a mindset shift, valuing people as much as protocols, conversation as much as computation. In the chapters that follow, Amara lays out a practical framework for how to make that shift. But if you take away one idea from this chapter, let it be this. In quantum, the strongest hardware is still human. Chapter 3. Upskilling, not just hiring. Growing talent internally. One of the most persistent myths in the quantum technology sector is that there's a talent shortage. Ask any startup founder or VC-backed executive, and they'll lament how hard it is to find qualified quantum engineers or PhD-level physicists who can jump right into product development. But Dr. Amara Graps doesn't buy the panic. Not entirely. She believes the talent is out there. It's just not always wearing a lab coat or posting preprints. And often, it's already sitting inside the organisation, just waiting to be upskilled. In her lectures and consultancy work, Amara points to a game-changing insight drawn from a World Economic Forum report. The perceived talent gap in quantum is largely one of accessibility and framing. According to the data, most organisations aren't short on smart, capable people. They're short on pathways for those people to step into quantum roles. Take, for example, a small to mid-sized software company with a solid IT or engineering department. Many of those team members have backgrounds in mathematics, systems design, or computer science. They already work with complex abstractions. They're analytical, methodical, and curious. Now consider this. In a recent industry heat map, over 50% of workers in telecoms and over 30% in energy and public sector tech said they were aware of quantum technologies and believed they would need to upskill within the next few years. In short, the desire is there. Amara's argument is simple. Stop treating quantum literacy like a PhD-only domain. Instead, build bridges. Start by identifying the curious minds already in your organisation. These are the team members who ask about emerging tech trends, read about quantum in their spare time, or attend external webinars during lunch breaks. They don't need to be experts. Not yet. They need direction. She recommends creating quantum literacy programs tailored to these individuals. That doesn't mean dropping them into a graduate physics course, it means giving them context. What is quantum good at? Where are the use cases? How does this apply to what we're building? And just as importantly, what isn't quantum good at? Amara has seen remarkable results from companies who invested in micro-learning platforms, hybrid workshops, and collaborative learning models. One startup she advised created a quantum guild, an internal group of engineers and product managers who explored quantum together, tackled case studies, and even built small proof-of-concept models using open-source simulators. Within a year, that team not only understood the quantum ecosystem, they started contributing to it. This model is especially valuable for companies in deep tech or adjacent industries like cybersecurity, logistics, materials science, and financial modelling. In these sectors, the quantum advantage may arrive slowly, but when it hits, it will reward those who are already prepared. Amara emphasises that growing talent internally also increases loyalty. People feel invested in, and in return, they invest more deeply in the company's vision. It reduces recruitment costs, builds resilience, and cultivates a culture of innovation that outlasts any single product cycle. She also encourages founders to think cross-functionally. Don't just train developers, train the comms team, train your salespeople, train your policy advisors and legal leads. The more people in your orbit who can speak confidently about quantum, even at a basic level, the more coherent and compelling your organization becomes. It's not just about solving hard equations, it's about solving the right problems and making sure everyone knows what those problems are. Critically, Amara sees upskilling as a form of community building. It transforms passive staff into active participants. It creates internal champions who can represent the company in public forums, mentor others, and build out new partnerships. It's quantum in motion, a field no longer locked in academic towers, but alive in the day-to-day operations of real businesses. In a sector often obsessed with hiring unicorns, Amara's advice lands like a well-placed circuit breaker. Pause the hunt, look inward, and start building your quantum team from the inside out. Because the best talent might already be on your team, they just haven't been asked yet. Chapter 4. The Triple Audience Model. Engaging 3 communities. If you want to build a successful quantum community, you first need to understand who you're actually building it for. According to Dr Amara Graps, one of the biggest mistakes quantum startups and research groups make is treating the public as one big, homogeneous blob. They launch their outreach strategies with slick PR or overly technical white papers, hoping one message will resonate with everyone. It never does. Through careful analysis and years of cross-sector engagement, Amara developed what she calls the triple audience model, a simple but powerful way to segment quantum communication efforts into 3 overlapping communities. Each one speaks a different language, has different goals, and needs a different kind of engagement. 1. The STEM-educated public. This group represents the curious generalists. They're not necessarily quantum experts, but they have enough foundational knowledge, often a university degree in science, engineering, or mathematics, to follow the conversation with the right framing. They read articles, watched TED Talks, and, yes, Google things like quantum tunneling after watching science fiction films. They're intellectually curious, and they represent a vital bridge between hardcore researchers and the broader public. Amara discovered their importance through an unexpected source, Wikipedia Analytics. When D-Wave made a series of high-profile announcements in the mid-2010s about quantum annealing, the Wikipedia page for quantum annealing saw a massive spike, thousands of page views above the norm. What that told her was clear. People weren't getting what they needed from press releases or promo videos. They were hungry for explanation, not hype. This group, she argues, is often the first wave of your community. Treat them with respect. Give them clear metaphors, consistent terminology, and accessible content. If they understand your mission, they'll amplify it. Second, deep tech professionals in other fields. This audience includes seasoned engineers, data scientists, materials researchers, and systems architects. They're not quantum native, but they're definitely technical. They've spent years mastering their own complex domains and are often wary of hype. This was the crowd that engaged deeply, and sometimes critically, with early quantum hardware vendors like D-Wave. Amara recounts how leading quantum blogger Scott Aronson and his readers dissected D-Wave's public claims with precision. D-Wave occasionally joined the conversation, but only superficially, missing an opportunity to build credibility with a critical stakeholder group. These deep tech professionals don't want polished press. They want transparency, documentation, benchmarks, and practical discussion. Engage them honestly, and they'll contribute ideas, feedback, and occasionally solutions. Ignore them, and they'll build benchmarks against you. Third, quantum specialists. The third community is the smallest, but also the most influential. The actual experts in quantum computing, cryptography, sensing, and simulation. This group includes academic researchers, quantum software developers, physicists, and hardware engineers. They're not your target market in the commercial sense, but they are the backbone of credibility and collaboration. If they support your work, others take notice. If they critique it, their voices carry weight. Amara emphasizes that engaging this group requires a blend of humility and openness. You don't have to pretend to be on their level, but you do have to listen. Share your data, ask for feedback, and invite co-creation where appropriate. In many ways, these specialists are the conscience of the field. They help keep the conversation grounded in scientific rigor, even as the commercial pressure builds. Bringing it all together, Amara's triple audience model offers a strategic way to build multi-layered support around a quantum initiative. You don't need to speak the same way to everyone, but you do need to speak to all of them. Ignore one group and your momentum slows. Engage them all, and your community becomes not just wider but deeper. Chapter 5. Storytelling, not silo building. How narrative drives engagement. There's a well-known saying in marketing circles, facts tell, but stories sell. Dr Amara Graps believes that in quantum technology, stories do more than sell. They connect, they clarify, and sometimes they rescue ideas from obscurity. Too often, quantum communication gets stuck in what Amara calls silo speak. Researchers talk to researchers. Startups pitch to investors. Engineers debug with other engineers. Each group operates in its own echo chamber, using language that makes sense inside but feels impenetrable to outsiders. The result? Disconnection, confusion, missed opportunities. Amara argues that the solution is storytelling, not marketing spin, not diluted science, but authentic narratives that help people understand why quantum matters and what it might mean for them. The D-Wave example, what happens when you skip the story? A case study Amara often cites is D-Wave Systems, the first commercial company to bring a quantum computing device to market. Back in 2015, D-Wave made headlines with major announcements about their quantum annealing machines. They released technical papers and promotional materials. The media coverage was loud, but the public understanding? Murky at best. Amara noticed something fascinating. During D-Wave's announcements, Wikipedia page views for quantum annealing spiked dramatically, up to 9,000 additional hits in a single day. That told her everything. People weren't absorbing the story from the press coverage. They were confused, curious, reaching for better explanations, looking for something that connected the dots. And where were they turning? Not to the company's videos or product pages, but to an open, decentralized knowledge hub that spoke their language. This, she says, was a missed opportunity. D-Wave had the world's attention, but they hadn't prepared the narrative scaffolding to help people climb into the conversation. The role of storytelling in building trust. In emerging technologies, people aren't just evaluating products, they're evaluating trust. Can this team explain what they're doing? Do they understand the risks? Are they honest about limitations? Do they know who their technology affects? Facts alone rarely answer these questions. Stories do. Amara teaches teams how to craft layered narratives. Not fictional tales, but structured explanations that weave technical progress with human impact. That introduce a challenge, show a journey, and end with insight or value. She encourages founders and researchers to answer 3 questions before releasing any public communication. 1. What do you want your audience to feel? 2. What do you want them to understand? 3. What do you want them to do next? When you answer all 3, you don't just inform, You engage. Make metaphors your friend. One of Amara's storytelling superpowers is metaphor. She believes metaphors are the bridges between complexity and comprehension. For example, she describes quantum entanglement not as an abstract mathematical condition, but as two socks that always match, no matter how far apart you throw them. Suddenly, a dense concept becomes accessible, even a little playful. She's used comparisons to dance choreography, weather systems, even clingy best friends, anything to anchor the abstract in the familiar. This isn't dumbing it down, it's lifting people up. Stories as recruitment and retention tools. Amara also highlights how storytelling strengthens communities internally. Teams that share a common narrative stay more aligned. New hires get onboarded faster. Stakeholders understand decisions better. She once worked with a company that struggled to retain staff in their R&D department. After introducing a shared origin story that highlighted the company's mission, vision, and early triumphs, team cohesion improved dramatically. People stopped saying, "What are we even doing here?" and started saying, "Let's get this right." In quantum, the math might be complex, but the communication doesn't have to be. People remember stories, they share them, they build on them, and when you give them a story they can believe in, you give them a reason to stay. Chapter 6. Build platforms, not pedestals, creating useful community infrastructure. One of the most common mistakes quantum innovators make, according to Dr Amara Graps, is trying to become the face of the field. It's understandable. In a fast-moving, high-stakes domain like quantum, the temptation to dominate headlines and position yourself as the visionary is strong. Startups want recognition, founders want investment, scientists want citations, and everyone wants influence. But Amara offers a different strategy, one she's seen work across sectors, from astrophysics to AI to quantum. Rather than build pedestals, she says, build platforms. The difference? A pedestal elevates a person. A platform elevates others. And in a complex, collaborative, interdisciplinary field like quantum, that distinction matters. Why platforms work? Amara defines a platform as any shared resource, system, or community space that enables others to participate, learn, or build. That could mean an open source toolkit for quantum software development, a regularly updated repository of quantum use cases, a Discord or Slack community for quantum enthusiasts, a mentorship network for students and early career professionals, even a wiki-style glossary of quantum terms in plain English. The point isn't that you own the conversation, it's that you host it, and in doing so you become a node of trust, credibility, and usefulness in your ecosystem. Small teams, big reach. For small quantum startups, especially those with limited marketing budgets, platform thinking is a growth superpower. Amara shares the story of a 3-person company in Eastern Europe that built a simple online simulator for quantum algorithms. They made it free. They added walkthroughs. They translated it into 3 languages. And they invited feedback from educators. Within months, that simulator was being used in classrooms across 5 countries. They hadn't published a single peer-reviewed paper, but they'd become a trusted resource. Investors took notice, so did collaborators. The platform did more for their credibility than any conference pitch could have. Tools before titles. Amara has long believed that the best way to lead in an emerging field is to build tools people actually use. That might sound obvious, but in quantum, where so much energy is still poured into theory or prestige, it's a radical idea. When you build a tool, even a simple one, you start a relationship. You invite feedback. You get real-world data. You discover who your users are, what they care about, and where your assumptions are wrong. That feedback loop is gold, and it only forms when you stop trying to be the smartest person in the room and start trying to be the most helpful. Lower the barrier to entry. Amara also urges platform builders to think inclusively. Too many resources in quantum are hidden behind paywalls, locked in academic journals, or written in a language only insiders understand. She champions accessibility as a strategic advantage. Every simplification you make, every tool you share, every barrier you remove, it brings more people into the field. Some of them will become customers, others will become partners, a few might become future team members, but all of them will remember who welcomed them in. In community building, attention is earned through value, not volume. So instead of shouting from a pedestal, Amara suggests, start building a stage. Let others stand on it. Invite them to share what they know. Listen. Learn. And when the spotlight swings your way, use it to shine light on others. Because in quantum, as in all revolutions, the future belongs to the builders. Chapter 7. Cross-pollinate like crazy. The power of weird events and mixed disciplines. If quantum is going to reach its full potential, it needs more than physicists and programmers. It needs musicians, biologists, lawyers, and artists. It needs weird events and unexpected conversations. It needs cross-pollination, and lots of it. Dr Amara Graps has spent decades building bridges across scientific domains. In astrophysics, she collaborated with planetary scientists and instrumentation engineers. In quantum, she's done the same, this time with a special emphasis on intentional interdisciplinarity. For Amara, innovation isn't linear, it's more like a garden. You plant an idea, water it with curiosity, and then let the bees of collaboration spread the pollen. The most fertile breakthroughs come not from perfect planning, but from unexpected encounters. Mix people, mix ideas. Amara believes deeply in the power of what she calls designed collisions. These are events, gatherings, or even informal coffee chats where people from wildly different backgrounds are placed in the same space with the express purpose of mixing their mental models. Think a cybersecurity analyst chatting with a visual artist, a quantum algorithm researcher meeting a philosopher, a legal ethicist brainstorming with a hardware engineer. These aren't random collisions, they're strategic. Amara has organised and participated in events where the guest list looked more like a quirky dinner party than a tech summit. And yet, those were the spaces where the most creative ideas emerged. One such event paired quantum engineers with climate scientists. Another brought together a group of poets and data modelers. The outcome wasn't always a product or a paper, but it was always a spark, a shift in perspective, a new way of thinking about an old problem, the antidote to groupthink. Quantum, like many emerging fields, is at risk of becoming insular. Conferences often feature the same faces. Research circles stay tight. The lingo becomes harder for newcomers to decode. Amara sees cross-pollination as a kind of intellectual vaccine against this trend. It inoculates communities against the dangers of groupthink. It forces experts to explain their work in plain terms. It encourages humility and, often, humour. In fact, some of the best communicators in quantum today didn't come from physics. They came from teaching, journalism, or product design. Their value wasn't in knowing the equations, it was in knowing how to translate them. Designing for diversity. Amara encourages quantum community builders to design events that feel intentionally mixed. Don't just open the doors and hope different people show up. Invite them. Curate panels with interdisciplinary speakers. Include sessions on ethics, policy, creativity, and history, not just computing performance or algorithmic efficiency. She also suggests using creative prompts during workshops. Instead of asking, "What problem can quantum solve?" Try, what problems do we all care about? Then work backwards. Let the quantum part emerge naturally as one tool in a larger toolbox. This approach does more than entertain. It seeds long-term collaborations. People leave these events with new vocabulary, new contacts, and sometimes new projects. Celebrate the weird. Amara is known for saying, if it feels a bit weird, you're probably doing it right. That's because breakthrough thinking often looks silly at first. It breaks expectations. It draws from unlikely sources. In one session, she paired a group of physicists with game designers. The goal was to imagine quantum principles as playable experiences. The outcome? A working prototype for an educational game now used in schools across the Baltics. Weird? Yes. Worth it? Absolutely. In a field where precision is prized, it's easy to forget the value of play. But Amara reminds us that play is not the opposite of seriousness. It's the fuel of creativity. So the next time you're planning an event, building a team, or starting a conversation in the quantum space, ask yourself, who hasn't been invited yet? Because in quantum, as in ecosystems, the health of the system depends on its diversity. Chapter 8. Diversity is a strategic weapon, inclusion as infrastructure. When companies think about diversity, it often comes up as a line in a mission statement, a checkbox for grant applications, or a feel-good photo on the About Us page. But Dr Amara Graps sees diversity differently, not as decoration, not as duty, but as infrastructure. The hidden framework that makes communities more resilient, organisations more profitable, and innovation more likely. In quantum technology, where the field is still forming and the future is wide open, Amara believes that inclusion isn't a nice to have. It's a strategic imperative. The numbers don't lie. Study after study shows that companies with diverse leadership, especially gender-diverse executive teams, outperform their peers financially. But the benefits go deeper than the balance sheet. Amara points to research showing that women in C-level roles often bring stronger community instincts, broader stakeholder empathy, and more sustainable planning practices. These aren't soft skills, they're survival skills, especially in complex, long-game fields like quantum. She highlights examples where women-led quantum initiatives have succeeded not by moving faster, but by building deeper. These leaders prioritize collaboration, communication, and ecosystem health, not just product timelines. And the results speak for themselves: stronger partnerships, better brand reputation, and more enduring impact, beyond the gender binary. Of course, inclusion isn't just about men and women. It's about opening the door wider for all kinds of thinkers, across cultures, education levels, abilities, ages, and disciplines. Amara advocates for neurodiverse hiring practices, for multilingual documentation, for events that include childcare or that don't assume everyone drinks alcohol. These might sound like minor adjustments, but they radically change who feels welcome in the room. She often reminds organisers, you can't claim to value diversity if your events, content and culture all cater to a single type of participant, from policy to practice. It's one thing to talk about diversity, it's another to build systems that support it. Amara encourages quantum leaders to go beyond recruitment quotas or glossy pledges. She recommends embedding inclusion in the operational DNA. That means rotating leadership in community groups, actively seeking feedback from underrepresented voices, creating mentorship channels for early career professionals, setting expectations around inclusive language and respectful dialogue. None of these changes are expensive, but they send a powerful signal: you belong here. Inclusion makes you smarter. One of the most overlooked benefits of diversity, Amara explains, is that it improves decision-making. When teams all come from similar backgrounds, their assumptions go unchallenged. They build blind spots into the system, they overestimate consensus, they underprepare for edge cases. In contrast, diverse teams argue more, but they also think more. They run better simulations, they anticipate objections, they spot risks earlier, they bring creative tension, not the kind that derails a project, but the kind that strengthens it. This is especially crucial in quantum, where the stakes are global and the applications are still evolving. Diverse perspectives don't slow progress, they steer it. Diversity is community glue. At a more human level, inclusion builds stickiness. People stay in communities where they feel seen, heard, and valued. Amara tells the story of a young quantum researcher from a non-traditional academic background who attended one of her workshops. At first, they hesitated to speak up, but when a senior panelist echoed their point and encouraged their question, everything changed. That one moment of visibility gave them the confidence to keep going, and now they're mentoring others. Communities grow best when they're built like networks, not hierarchies, and networks thrive on diverse nodes. Inclusion isn't just about fairness, it's about fitness, the ability of a quantum community to evolve, respond, and survive. So if you're building in this space, ask yourself, who's missing, and what would it take to invite them in? Not as a guest, but as a co-creator. Because the future of quantum won't be written by a few, it will be shaped by the many. Chapter 9. Ethics before ego. Building integrity into quantum from day one. In most emerging technologies, ethics shows up late, usually after something goes wrong. In the early days of the internet, few foresaw the scale of misinformation. With social media, the warning signs about addiction and manipulation came long after global adoption. Dr Amara Graps believes quantum must do better. Not just because it can, but because it must. Unlike past tech revolutions, quantum is still in its formative years. That makes it uniquely positioned to embed ethics early, into its designs, its governance models, and most crucially, its communities. Ethics is not an add-on. Amara pushes back on the idea that ethics is a compliance box to tick once the tech is mature. She views it as a design constraint and a creative one. When you treat ethics as foundational, you make different decisions. You think harder about who benefits. You evaluate unintended consequences. You design safeguards before rollout, not after public backlash. This mindset isn't about slowing down innovation, it's about steering it. And it starts with asking better questions. What quantum might disrupt? Quantum computing promises massive breakthroughs, better drug discovery, optimization at scale, unbreakable encryption, but it also threatens current systems. Quantum could render today's cryptographic infrastructure obsolete. It could amplify inequalities in computation access. It could centralize power into the hands of a few tech giants or governments with first-mover advantage. Amara urges community builders and policymakers to think deeply about who controls the quantum advantage and how we ensure that advantage is shared. This means engaging not just engineers and investors, but ethicists, sociologists, human rights advocates, and educators. Because the most profound questions around quantum aren't technical, they're societal. Community as ethical infrastructure. Here's where Amara's experience shines. She argues that ethics is not just a personal or organizational responsibility, it's a community-wide function. Communities set norms, they flag bad actors, they celebrate transparency, and they offer collective memory, a way of tracking what's been tried, what's gone wrong, and what lessons were learned. She draws from her experience in astrophysics, where mission design must consider long-term planetary impact, global cooperation, and data transparency. Those same principles can, and should, apply to quantum. If a community values openness, it documents its work. If it values safety, it shares failure modes. If it values fairness, it builds tools that are multilingual, accessible, and aware of structural inequalities. Tools for ethical engagement. Amara recommends several practical steps for embedding ethics into quantum initiatives. Ethics check-ins during roadmap planning. Scenario modeling for unintended consequences. Inclusive stakeholder mapping to surface underrepresented voices. Public engagement efforts like open Q and A sessions or explainers. Code of conduct documents for community spaces, forums, and events. None of these tools require a legal team. They require intention and a willingness to be accountable, not just to shareholders, but to society. Watch the hype. Amara also sounds a warning about the risks of over-promising. Quantum is complex, it's powerful, but it's not magic. She cautions against exaggerated timelines, unrealistic ROI claims, and media narratives that create public confusion. Not because ambition is bad, but because hype, when it collapses, creates cynicism, and cynicism erodes trust. A field that promises too much too soon can lose the very trust it needs to grow. Amara's approach is simple. Be bold in vision, but humble in communication, the moral opportunity. Ethics in quantum isn't just about avoiding harm, it's about choosing impact. It's about asking, how can this field help solve the world's most pressing challenges? Where can it level the playing field? How can it expand access, not concentrate control? These aren't fringe questions. They're front and center responsibilities for anyone serious about building the quantum future. Because in Amara's view, integrity scales faster than technology. If you get the values right early, the ecosystem will carry them forward. But if you don't, no amount of qubits can save you. Chapter 10. Measure what matters. Finding the right metrics for community success. In the world of startups and tech ecosystems, metrics rule. There are pitch decks filled with performance benchmarks, investor calls obsessed with growth curves, and dashboards brimming with KPIs. But Dr. Amara Graps has a different question. Are we measuring the right things? In quantum, as in any transformative field, it's easy to fall in love with numbers. QPU speeds, error rates, patent counts, publication impact factors. But when it comes to building a quantum community, Amara argues that many of the most important indicators aren't numerical at all. They're relational, behavioral, subtle, and often they're missing from the spreadsheet. Vanity versus vitality. Amara makes a distinction between what she calls vanity metrics and vitality metrics. Vanity metrics look impressive. Follower counts, press mentions, funding rounds. They're easy to inflate and even easier to misunderstand. They make you look good, but they don't necessarily make you better. Vitality metrics, on the other hand, tell you how healthy your community really is. They might not grab headlines, but they reveal the strength of your connections, the depth of your engagement, and the likelihood that your community will grow organically and sustainably. What to track instead? Amara recommends several key vitality indicators for any quantum initiative trying to build a strong community. Return participation. Are people coming back to your events, forums, or content? Platforms. Diversity of voices. Who's speaking, who's writing, who's leading? Cross-sector traction. Are you engaging with government, academia, startups, and civil society, or just your inner circle? Mentorship flows. Are senior experts mentoring juniors, and are juniors feeling empowered to ask questions? Collaboration over time. Are partnerships forming organically between members, even outside your direct line of sight? None of these metrics are easy to graph, but they're what build resilience. They're what prevent community burnout and ensure that good ideas have lifelines. The Wikipedia proxy. One of Amara's more creative measurement strategies involves looking at public interest through unusual proxies. She often cites the Wikipedia example from D-Wave's early PR push. Rather than relying solely on page views or engagement with D-Wave's own media, she tracked the traffic spikes to the Wikipedia page for quantum annealing. That one data point revealed something powerful. There was a massive curiosity spike, but it wasn't being met by the right content in the right places. It was a signal of interest without direction. A smart community builder takes that signal and responds. They create better explainers, FAQ sections, short videos, beginners' glossaries, anything that transforms curiosity into comprehension. Qualitative counts too. Not everything that matters can be measured in hard data. Amara regularly captures qualitative feedback from events and engagements. She listens for emotional signals, enthusiasm, confusion, friction, clarity. She pays attention to the kinds of questions being asked. Are they getting more specific, more strategic? Are people moving from what is quantum to how does this apply to my work? That shift marks real growth. In some cases, a single email from a listener or student can outweigh a dozen flashy analytics charts. It's a reminder that at the center of every community is a person, not a number, metrics that evolve with the mission. As quantum technologies evolve, so too should the way we measure their community impact. Amara warns against static KP is in a dynamic ecosystem. What matters in year 1 may be irrelevant by year 3. She encourages teams to regularly audit their metrics, not just to track performance, but to check alignment with values. Are we building the kind of community we set out to build? And if not, what's changed? In quantum, success is often defined by technological benchmarks, but Amara Graps reminds us that lasting success depends on people, trust, and the space between them. If you want to go fast, measure speed. But if you want to go far, measure connection. Chapter 11. Conclusion. Start with one conversation. If you've made it this far, you're already part of something rare. You've stepped beyond the qubits, beyond the buzzwords, beyond the algorithms, and into the heart of what makes quantum matter: people. Dr Amara Graps has spent her career moving between worlds, from space to quantum, from research labs to policy forums, from writing grant proposals to translating quantum concepts for governments and generalists alike. But wherever she's gone, one thing has remained constant: her belief that community is the true infrastructure of innovation. Technology changes quickly. Funding comes and goes. Companies rise, merge, pivot, or disappear. But communities, when built with care, clarity, and inclusiveness, outlive them all. They're what carry the culture. They preserve the lessons. They seed the next generation of thinkers, builders, and leaders. And here's the best part: you don't have to wait for permission to start one. You don't need a £1 million grant. You don't need to be a quantum physicist. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to care enough to start a conversation. Amara's journey into quantum didn't begin in a lab. It began in a moment of frustration, when funding dried up and doors started closing. But instead of retreating, she chose to reconnect. She reached out, asked questions, wrote what she learned, shared what she knew, and in doing so, she helped grow communities that have now shaped policies, built startups, and mentored hundreds of curious minds across the world. You can do the same. Whether you're a founder trying to build trust, a researcher looking to broaden your impact, or simply a listener who finds this world fascinating, your voice matters. Communities aren't built with loudspeakers. They're built with listening, empathy, and persistence. So start small. Host a lunch talk, share an article, translate an idea, ask the question no one else is asking, And most importantly, keep showing up. Because the future of quantum won't be built by lone geniuses or corporate titans. It will be built by us, together, one conversation at a time.